Hidden near the west coast of Singapore for over 5 decades, Jurong Bird Park was more than just a collection of birds. It was a sanctuary, an adventure, a place where families and bird lovers could experience the wonders of avian life up close. Today, we're taking a trip down memory lane, remembering the sights, the sounds and feathers of this iconic park. Welcome to Remembering Jurong Bird Park. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Perth Theme Park Live. Today, we're a bit further north of Perth. We're back in Singapore. And this is thanks to all of these amazing viewers who have commented on the old Sentosa video that we published like 4 years ago or something, quite a few years ago now, and is doing very well at the moment. So I thought you guys might want some more nostalgia. So here it is, Jurong Bird Park. Jurong Bird Park, like I said, it was like 20 hectares on the west, towards the west coast of Singapore. It was away from other tourist infrastructure. You had to catch the train out to Boon Lay, so not to Jurong train station, to Boon Lay, and then a short bus ride from there you got to the Jurong Park, Jurong Bird Park. And there, I want to take you through today, I want to take you through the park like you're really going there. Like what things I would have done if I was going to spending a day at Jurong Bird Park. And I loved going to Jurong Bird Park. Like for me, it was the closest thing you could get to like a major theme park in our area of the world. Like there were no Universal Studios parks like there is now in Singapore. There was I think one theme park in Singapore on the east coast, but this was on the west coast. I love going to Jurong Bird Park, and I do love the nostalgia for it. I can understand that. The first thing you did when you went to Jurong Bird Park, there was kind of like walkways. There were like several parrots and macaws on display. If you wanted to get a photo with them, this would be the place to do it. After you went through turnstiles, you came across Penguin Coast. This was a nice, kind of like, it was indoor attraction. The air conditioning was really good, and you could see the penguins up close, a variety of penguins there, and you could actually see them feeding them there in the video. And of course, the next thing you had to do was catch the Panorail. The Panorail was this Swiss von Roll monorail, which ran around the park for 20 years. They started construction in 1990, and 1992 they finished it, and it finally closed in 2012. But it was perfect for getting a bird's eye view of Jurong Bird Park. You could get into the Panorail. What you need to do is you need to listen to this audio. This will hit you with the nostalgia feels right now.
You know, there's so much to see and do at the bird park, but one thing you definitely shouldn't miss is the all-star bird show. The birds that take part love performing, and you'll love watching the theater on your right. Percussion section too. The woodpeckers. They're not really making music, of course. The hammering chases out ants and grubs for the woodpeckers to eat. The birds are just below you on the right. Obviously, though, they're safe here. They're wading birds.
From the monorail, you get a really good view of the Pools Amphitheatre, which was the main amphitheatre, which it felt like it could fit thousands of people. The Pools Amphitheatre for the Birds and Buddies show. The Birds and Buddies show was one of those classic shows where, you know, you could see parrots slam dunking a basketball, and they also kind of rethemed it for an environmental thing, like putting the trash in the bin type thing. But it was usually like Barry versus Cocky kind of thing, and half the amphitheater would, you know, cheer for Barry, and the other half would cheer for Cocky in what seemed like some kind of like Thunderdome for parrots. And then after that, you often got one of the birds that had vocal talents, where it might sing Singapore, the song, it learnt to count to 10, might sing happy birthday for someone.
Introduce yourself. What's your name? Amigo. Amigo is his name.
And you also had birds flying out into the amphitheatre. Sometimes they'd be going through hoops that were held up by audience members, and other times maybe someone would have some money in their hand and the bird would be trained to retrieve the money and maybe possibly return it. There's a great shot here of some birds flying out to this young guy in the audience. Sure, that guy remembers what that was like to this day. At the end of the show, there was always, they would call on, the pelicans, flamingos, and a bunch of other birds, and they would hit home with their environmental message of reduce, reuse, recycle. After that, you would maybe head up the hill. There were the scarlet ibises. And then around the corner was Laurie Loft. Laurie Loft was like an Australian influence kind of a huge aviary, massive aviary, and you could buy little cup of nectar or something else that the lorikeets and the parrots absolutely loved. And depending on the weather and whether the parrots had been fed that day or the lorikeets had been fed that day, you could be really successful, or you couldn't give away your nectar to anyone. So yeah, it was amazing. It was constructed on a couple of different levels, so there were plenty of places to wander around and try and attract a bird's attention to give them your nectar. After that, going around the park, there were dinosaur descendants. Dinosaur descendants were the emus, the cassowaries, the ostriches that were there, and it gave you a bit of history about how they related to dinosaurs. Across the road from that, across the path from that, was the hummingbird, the aviary, which was indoors, and you'd be lucky to see them. Often you couldn't see them. In this video, you can see them, and as you can see, you'd point your camera one way, and the next second the hummingbirds moved and it's gone to somewhere else. So it was really hard to catch them in view, but they were amazing birds. They're beautiful, tiny but beautiful birds. Also around the corner was the Southeast Asian Birds Aviary, which featured a midday thunderstorm. So around, you had to get there bang on 12 o'clock after the main show finished, and you could hear the artificial thunder starting, and all of the birds got really excited as the rain started drenching down. There are other places you could go within the aviary where you yourself wouldn't get wet, but it was great to see the birds get excited and have shelter amongst the trees from the rain, but also maybe have a drink as well. Speaking of rainfall, the African Waterfall Aviary was towards the back of the park, and it featured a monorail stop. So the monorail would actually pull into the aviary. The aviary was that big, and it featured the tallest man-made waterfall in the world, indoor waterfall. It was inside the aviary, and there were plenty of places where you could walk down from the station. There was a little shop inside the aviary, and you could walk up and around. You could see the waterfall from a lot of different angles, and they even had keeper talks and chances to feed the birds there. They often had little things of mealworms for the birds to feed. So if you got there, if you looked at your brochure, your handout for the day, it would tell you feeding times, and if you paid a small sum of money, you get the mealworms, and you could feed the birds there. And also, I was told you can also feed the meerkats. So even though it was a bird park for a short while, for a season or two, there were meerkats on loan from Singapore Zoo there. So they had meerkats there, and you can see a bit of footage there, but you couldn't, this isn't the time I think we fed them, but when we did feed them, they were pleasantly surprised and very excited to get some a little meal or mealworms. Shortly after that, it's usually around about lunchtime, and there were usually some choices to have lunch. There were takeaway options. They had a really good Indian meal there you could have, which was really good. There was this main restaurant area. So if you wanted, for quite a few years, not always, towards the end you couldn't, but for quite a few years they had the large restaurant open there. So it might have been, you could get fish and chips or something, proper sit-down meal, which I love. Like good theme parks and parks should have a sit-down choice, where if you want to pay a bit more, if you want to sit inside in air conditioning or away from the elements, out of the rain, perfect place to do that. People also got married here. It was that picturesque, the picturesque gardens and the building was amazing. So people did get married there. If you wanted to eat outside, there was a room on the forecourt there, and they also held a pirates and parrots show here too. So you can see some footage of their lunchtime show, which was entertaining if you're having a bite to eat there. After that, you could wander around the picturesque gardens, the beautiful gardens there. And around this part of the park, you could also find flamingos, which you could feed in the afternoons. Someone would be feeding them, and if you're lucky, you'll get given a piece of bread or something to feed them with. And that was towards the front of the park. Near the restaurant area, you could also find all of the pelicans. They had I think 12 different types of pelicans. So basically pelicans from all over the world, including the beautiful Australian pelicans. They were there too. And one of the keepers would often be feeding them fish in the afternoon. Towards the back of the park, we also, for a couple of years, we had blue macaws. And they were quite different from your regular macaws, and they looked spectacular. They also had a kids splash area called Birds of Play, and next to that they had a breeding and research center where you could see cute but maybe kind of ugly baby flamingos, which hadn't quite got their color yet. You could see them growing up, and there was a lot of information here that you could learn about birds and especially flamingos there. The other presentation you had to go see was the Birds of Prey show, and that was at the end of the Fuji Hawk Walk. So you go down the Fuji Hawk Walk to the other amphitheater, and they had, I think, vultures, they had kites, definitely had owls there, so you get a bit of information about them. Yeah, they had birds flying low overhead, so the audience members were reminded, stay down low, don't stand up in the middle of the show. So that was really exciting, and you could hear the birds fly overhead. In Western Australia, we do have not a similar show, but a show about birds of prey down at Cape's Raptor Park, which is in Margaret River. So if you are in Margaret River, it is worth checking out. It's not as grand as this one, but it's a lovely little show and very entertaining and extremely educational, which was good. So that was the second presentation that you had to see. After 52 years of operation, Jurong Bird Park quietly closed its doors a couple of years ago, and all of its residents moved across to Mandai Reserve to be in a park that's right opposite Singapore Zoo. So all of the large animal attractions are now really close to each other. But I'm sure, like me, you guys in Singapore miss Jurong Bird Park, and I just want to say thank you for all your support in watching the video about Old Sentosa. I really feel strongly about Jurong Bird Park. I think it was an amazing attraction, and you guys were really lucky to have something like that. And I haven't gone to see the new park at Mandai Reserve. It sounds amazing. But maybe that'll be for a video in the future. Thank you very much for watching, guys. We still have a few more videos this season of our local parks here, so hopefully you'll stay tuned and watch those coming up soon. My name's Ian, and we'll catch you next time. See you then.